Haribol, Namaste. And we're here again for another Krishna book reading. My name is Janapati Das. Thank you for joining in today. Please accept my respects and let me offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual teacher, Jagadguru Siddha Swarupananda, Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, and of course to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, which translated and purported upon the Krishna book story that we are reading from. If this is your first time joining, feel free to go back in my YouTube channel, like and subscribe, share with your friends, and start from the video of the first Krishna book reading. And there's about maybe 40 or 50 videos now that I've done working through the different Krishna stories. So we are going to start with some hearing and chanting of Krishna's names. And there's a wonderful prayer by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that is his third prayer that he wrote 8 prayers altogether. And that is, one should chant the holy names of the Lord in a humble state of mind, feeling oneself to be lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one should chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. So it's a very wonderful thing to remember. Not only should we spread Krishna consciousness, spread Krishna's names to the world, and there's so many terrible things that are going on and people suffering, but of course, even without the things that have gone on most recently, there's always suffering and unhappiness and stress that goes on because of our natural tendency to, we naturally have a tendency to love God, but we have forgotten because we've wanted to be God. We have a lust and a desire and envy of God, and we've come into this material world and forgotten our original status as loving servants of Krishna, which is really what brings us happiness, contentment, and satisfaction. So the remedy, of course, is to engage in Krishna consciousness. And the prime benediction to do that, as taught by Lord Chaitanya, is to hear and chant Krishna's names. And not only to hear chant Krishna's names, but to be humble, have humility, because we are very sinful. We've engaged in very horrible activities in our many lives, and we are stuck in this material world. So we take a point of humility. We don't expect respect from other people, and we really only engage our life in the service of Krishna, which brings us true happiness and equilibrium of mind. We don't feel like we need to search out our happiness anywhere else other than Krishna. The more we engage in this process, the more we realize that. So I'm going to go ahead and chant. Feel free to join in. Srimate Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Iti Namine Namo Vishnudaya Krishna Prestaya Haribol. Welcome. So we are continuing in our story with the Rasa Lila dance, the Rasa dance between Krishna and the gopis. And Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shukadev Goswami further concludes that the great sages and devotees who are all washed clean of conditional life can move freely, even with the contamination of material nature, by keeping Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, within their hearts. So this is even stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the same kind of thing, that a person who is in Krishna consciousness can be happy in this world. They can function in this world, even though they're in the material world. So like the lotus flower grows up above the water and the muck and the dirt, right? So similarly, the devotee of Krishna, by engaging in the process of sadhana bhakti, can grow up out of the material contamination. That's why Jesus Christ also said one should be in the world, but not of this world. In other words, they can be actively engaging in the service of Krishna in this world, utilizing the material energy in the service of Krishna, but not be affected by it. And that is why we engage in sadhana bhakti. Sadhana means practice, and bhakti, of course, means loving devotion. When we are in the material world, we're heavily contaminated, just like, you have, you're like stuck. I think one of the words in Sanskrit, I'm trying to think of the actual word of it. Mujja. Maybe it's mujja, foolish. There's a Sanskrit word that actually, another meaning of it means to be like stuck, like you're stuck in something. Just like you're stuck in this muck and you can't get out. So the real, the living entity is covered by this material energy. And the process of this hearing and chanting of Krishna's names, and the process of sadhana bhakti is like cleaning like Lord Chaitanya says, it cleans the dust of the heart. So you can see, like the mirror of your heart, you can see yourself for who you really are. Not the body, not the mind, but spiritual in essence, in the loving service of Krishna. This becomes more and more apparent. That's why this clarity comes more and more by that. And then you are engaging in this world. You can be doing exactly what a materialist is doing, who's not engaging in the service of Krishna. Go to work, have families, using money or whatever, but you're not affected by it. You're not trying to get all these things for your own enjoyment, but for the enjoyment of Krishna. So that's why they keep Krishna within their hearts. In this way, they do not also become subject to the laws of pleasure and pain and the modes of material nature. So Krishna also made this point to Arjuna, that you can do these actions of fighting as an offering to me without the attachment to the result of whether it's good or bad. You engage in the service. This will bring you true happiness, not being attached by it. And so therefore you are not subjected to the karmic reaction of either good or bad activity, material activities. How then is it possible for Krishna, who appears in his own internal potency, to be subject to the laws of karma? In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord clearly states that whenever he appears, he does so by his internal potency. He is not forced to accept a body by the laws of karma, like an ordinary living entity. Every other living entity is forced to accept a certain type of body by his previous actions. But when Krishna appears, he always appears in a body. It is not forced upon him by the action of his past deeds. His body is a vehicle for his transcendental pleasure, which is enacted by his internal potency. He has no obligation to the laws of karma. The laws of karma are coming from Krishna. Everything emanates from Krishna. The laws of karma, but he is not affected by the laws. He's not affected by the material energy, even though it emanates from him. The Mayavadi monist must accept a certain type of body being forced by the laws of nature. Therefore, his claim to be one with Krishna or God is only theoretical. So that's the hard thing to accept with this sort of impersonalist thought when a so-called guru comes into the world and says he is an incarnation of God, but yet he's got these sufferings that he's dealing with. He has to go to the bathroom. That's why I always like to use that quote from that movie Annie Hall, and Shelley Duvall is a reporter. It's a great example because Shelley Duvall is a reporter. She's with Woody Allen, and she's like, "Oh, it's so wonderful. I've reported on the Maharishi who was an impersonalist, thought he was God also, and taught the same kind of impersonal thought." And he said, "He's so wonderful. He's God." And then Woody Allen pointed to the bathroom and said, "Oh, here comes God coming out of the bathroom." And I always thought it was such a deeper thought than probably Woody Allen even thought, but it's true. It's like, it's absurd to say that you're God. If you're God, why are you subjected to the laws of material energy? You say it's your Lila, but it's just all crazy philosophy. You have to abide by the laws of nature. Your body dies. Why does it die if you're God? So there's so many problems with this thought. That's why it's only theoretical. Such persons who claim to be equal with Krishna and indulge in Rasa Lila create a dangerous situation for the people in general. And this is also brought up by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, that what great men do, or even what is the visual of what people think of as a great man, common men will follow. So he's saying, if you're going to go off to the forest and not be a warrior, you may or may not be capable of being able to be a yogi, but then you have all these people who go off and to claim to be a yogi, and they're like, they don't want to do their duty, they don't want to be part of the material world, or try to engage in rules and regulation or sadhana bhakti to try to build their spiritual, or to reveal their spiritual connection with Krishna. Instead, they go off to the forest, and then they get entangled more because they have to kill, and maybe people admire them, and so then this happens all the time. You have these yogis who are like, "Oh, look how renounced I am," and then they've got sort of naive followers who are females, and they're just like, and then they get entangled sexually with the yogi because he's like, "Look how renounced I am," and then he seduces women. So they're not actually being someone who leads to follow. In other words, Krishna told Arjuna, you should be an example by doing what I want you to do. That is his example. That's what it means by following in the footsteps of a pure devotee. If you follow in the footsteps of the spiritual master, and Krishna was being the spiritual master to Arjuna, Arjuna would be the spiritual master, and you follow in the footsteps. If he engages in Krishna's service without attachment for, happiness or distress, or any kind of result, then that is setting a good example. So that's sort of the long-winded way of saying it. But here are the people that are saying, "Oh, I'm Krishna, and these are my gopis," and then they have sex with young girls or other men dressed like girls, and it's just really ridiculous. And this kind of thing, unfortunately, happens in India and other places to this day. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always present as Supersoul within the bodies of the gopis and their husbands. He is the guide of all living entities, as is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad. Nitya Nityanam Chaitanash Chaitanam. So that's, in other words, God is one. He is the Supreme Personality. He is the ultimate goal. He is the guide of all living entities. The Supersoul directs the individual soul to act, and the Supersoul is the actor and witness of all action. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is present in everyone's heart, and from him come all action, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So Krishna knows Krishna's in your heart, so he knows what you want. People sometimes don't see God. They don't experience God, and they're like, "Where's God?" But they've chosen in their heart that they don't really want to serve Krishna. So that's why there's all action, remembrance, and forgetfulness. If you want to know God, it is said that all you have to do is say, "Dear Lord, I want to see you," and Krishna makes it possible. That's why it's said that God brings us Guru, and Guru brings us God. So God, you say, "I want to know you, God," and God introduces you to the pure devotee. Pure devotee then introduces you back to Krishna. He is the author of the Vedanta philosophy, and he knows the Vedanta philosophy perfectly well. The so-called Vedantists and Mayavadis cannot understand Krishna as he is. They simply mislead followers by imitating the actions of Krishna in an unauthorized way. Krishna, the supersoul of everyone, is already within the body of everyone. Therefore, if he sees someone or embraces someone, there is no question of propriety. Some ask, if Krishna is self-sufficient, why should he at all manifest pastimes with the gopis, which are disturbing to the so-called moralists of the world? The answer is that such activities show special mercy to the fallen conditioned souls. That's why Krishna is the most merciful. He's the source of all mercy. He goes out of his way to reclaim the lost souls. The gopis are also expansions of his internal energy, but because Krishna wanted to exhibit the Rasa Lila, they also appeared as ordinary human beings. In the material world, pleasure is ultimately manifested in the sex attraction between man and woman. The man lives simply to be attracted by women, and the woman lives simply to be attracted by men. That is the basic principle of material life. As soon as these attractions are combined, people become more and more implicated in material existence. In order to show them special favor, Krishna exhibited this Rasa Lila dance. It is just to captivate the conditioned soul, since they are very much attracted by sexology. They can enjoy the same life with Krishna and thus become liberated from material conditions. So sex life is the ultimate form of lust in this material world. It is a perverted reflection of actual transcendental love for God. And it's pervertedly reflected as sex desire in the material world. In the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit also explains that the pastimes and activities of Lord Krishna are medicine for the conditioned souls. Medicine. So it's actually, sometimes the doctor comes to you and says, you have this condition and you need to take this medicine to get better. And so you may take the medicine and you may find, okay, I've done it a few times and I don't really feel better. And you think, oh, this doesn't work. This happens all the time. Some people come to chanting, they may be very conditioned to material life, and they're like, this chanting, it's nice, it's pretty, but it doesn't really work for me. But everyone's in a different spiritual place. Sometimes people come and they're immediately attracted to it. Other times they're not. It's said that it's kind of bitter, just like the material enjoyment is very sweet. But in chanting, when you engage in chanting, hearing and chanting in sadhana bhakti, the process of Krishna consciousness in practice, sometimes it's not as enjoyable still in the beginning, but you engage in it more and you find that your heart starts to become clean and you start to become more and more attracted to that. And simultaneously, the desire for sense enjoyment goes down. Less and less, becomes more bitter. I don't want to engage in that so much. That's not so much fun. It's not really, it seems gross to me. But I'm very, very attracted to Krishna's names. That's the natural state of our state coming forward. But whereas you can become equally conditioned by material life, you could be a devotee and you start engaging in material activity and it becomes very, very sweet to you. But it will never, ever satisfy you. It will continuously bring you misery and unhappiness. But the desire will still be there. And that's that natural desire. That's a spiritual hunger, wanting to be with Krishna. And Krishna just, he says, well, okay, you want to engage in this, then I give you forgetfulness so that you can forget me, and engage in this. It's very sad. If they simply hear about Krishna, they become relieved from the material disease. They are addicted to material enjoyment and accustomed to reading sex literature, but by hearing these transcendental pastimes of Krishna with the gopis, they will be relieved from material contamination. Bhaktivedanta Swami always says this. He brings this up. If you hear this story or you meditate upon the story, you will be relieved of the material distress. Because Krishna's pastimes are very sweet. They're very sweet and they're eternal, and you can delve into them continuously, reading them your whole life, and you still learn so much about spiritual life from them. They're beautiful. How they should hear and from whom is also explained by Shukadeva Goswami. The difficulty is that the whole world is full of Maya bodies, which is true, unfortunately. There's many impersonalists and impersonalism within society and our movies and music and a lot of stuff that basically is at deep root is atheism, and a desire is actually stemming from material sense enjoyment. The difficulty, and when they become professional reciters of Srimad Bhagavatam, and when people without knowing the effect of the Mayavada philosophy hear from such persons, they become confused. So when you hear from a pure devotee from the on the Srimad Bhagavatam, a devotee of Krishna, you're not confused. You receive clarity. You have clarity in your heart from Krishna. When you receive the same Srimad Bhagavatam from an impersonalist, their conclusions are all poison. So therefore you become confused. You don't understand. Discussion of Rasa Lila among people in general is not recommended because they are affected by the Mayavada philosophy. But if one who is advanced explains and people hear from him, certainly the hearers will be gradually elevated to the position of Krishna consciousness and liberated from materially contaminated life. Okay, see if I can get through this chapter. Another point is that all the gopis who danced with Krishna were not in their material bodies. They danced with Krishna in their spiritual bodies. All the husbands thought that their wives were sleeping by their sides. The so-called husbands of the gopis were already enamored by the influence of the external energy of Krishna. So by the dint of this very energy, they could not understand that their wives had gone to dance with Krishna. What then is the basis of accusing Krishna of dancing with others' wives? The bodies of the gopis, which were their husbands, were lying in bed, but the spiritual parts and parcel of Krishna were dancing with him. Krishna is the supreme person, the whole spirit, and he danced with the spiritual bodies of the gopis. There is therefore no reason to accuse Krishna in any way. So Krishna was actually engaging with the spirit souls of the gopis. After the rasa dance was over, the night turned into the Brahma Muhurta, the night of Brahma, a very, very long period, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. The Brahma Muhurta takes place about 1.5 hours before sunrise. It is recommended that one should rise from bed at that time, and after finishing daily ablutions, take to spiritual activities by performing Mangala Artik and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. This period is very convenient for the execution of spiritual activities. When that auspicious moment arrived, Krishna asked the gopis to leave. Although they were not willing to quit his company, they were very obedient and dear to him. As soon as Krishna asked them to go home, they immediately left and returned home. Shukadeva Goswami concludes this episode of Rasa Lila by pointing out that if a person hears from the right source of the pastimes of Krishna, who is Vishnu himself, and the gopis, who are expansions of his energy, then he will be relieved from the most dangerous type of disease, namely lust. So here's another point that Bhaktivedanta Swami is citing these examples from great sages and great devotees of Krishna, that one who hears of the pastimes of Krishna is relieved of the material contamination and allowed for their spiritual love of Krishna to shine out more. If one actually hears Rasa Lila, he will become completely freed from the lusty desire of sex life and elevated to the highest level of spiritual understanding. Generally, because they hear from Mayavadis, and they themselves are Mayavadis, people become more and more implicated in sex life. The conditioned soul should hear the Rasa Lila dance from an authorized spiritual master and be trained by him so that he can understand the whole situation. Thus, one can be elevated to the highest standard of spiritual life. Otherwise, one will be implicated. Material lust is a kind of heart disease. And to cure the material heart disease of the conditioned soul, it is recommended that one should hear, but not from the impersonalist rascals. If one hears from the right sources with right understanding, then his situation will be different. I think also the Shukadev Goswami also made the point that is pointed here as well, that the material lust is a spiritual hunger. In other words, it's a heart disease. Your spirituality is in your heart because Krishna is in your heart and you are present within your heart. And it's a disease because it's not only just covering you, but it's also, you are dying, like the bird in the birdcage. You are dying of spiritual hunger, of how that connection with Krishna. You're trying so much to paint and make the cage of the bird cage really nice that that's not feeding the bird, and the bird is dying. In other words, we are not taking an adequate amount of time in our life to engage in spiritual activities, true religion. This is true religion of love for Krishna. We do so much for our bodies, for our mental capacity, of things that we do. We try to get enough rest and we eat well, and these things are important, but we don't do enough in our day to deal with our spiritual identity. And these are things that what we do with our body is limited. Eventually we will have to die, or eventually we'll be killed. Situations happen. But if we need to equally, if not more, take more time every day to engage in feeding ourselves spiritually. That is, listening to Krishna stories, chanting Krishna's name, doing our japa. There's so many wonderful things that we can do from the service of Krishna and our spiritual master. That is like a development, like lifting weights, lifting the weights in our spiritual life. Let's see here. Lost my spot. Material lot. Yeah, I said that. Okay. Sukadev Goswami has used this word Shraddhanvita for one who is trained in the spiritual life. Shraddha, or faith, is the beginning. Another word of Shraddha is also to draw closer. So it is also faith, but it's also an engaging in your spiritual life and drawing closer to Krishna. One who has developed his faith in Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Spirit Soul, can both describe and hear. Shukadev also uses the word anushnuyat. One must hear from disciplic succession. Anu means following, and anu means always. So one must always follow the disciplic succession and not hear from any stray professional reciter, Mayavadi or ordinary man. Anushrunuyat means that one must hear from an authorized person who is in the disciplic succession and is always engaged in Krishna consciousness. So that is the devotee of Krishna, our spiritual master, who's in a disciplic line all the way back to Krishna, hearing and repeating the same things that Krishna was said to Lord Brahma, or even the sun god in whatever disciplic line, or Lord Shiva. These are the same spiritual concepts that are still being handed down today, of what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is not something that I've made up or come up or gone on the internet and tried to figure out. It's something my spiritual master has taught me. And his spiritual master, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, taught him. And Bhakti Siddhanta taught Bhaktivedanta. And Gaur Kishore Das Babaji taught Bhakti Siddhanta. And then, of course, and so on and so on. And then Bhakti Vinod Thakur taught Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. And it just goes on and on and on. Actually, at the front of the Bhagavad Gita, I think there's a disciplic lineage, shows all the spiritual masters if you want to know about who are the spiritual masters in the Brahma Sampradaya lineage. And well, we're at 32 minutes. Let's see how much I've got. Okay, I'm almost done. I will just read the rest of the chapter. Shukadeva uses two specific words, bhaktim and param. Bhaktim param means execution of devotional service above the neophyte stage. All right, so the neophyte stage is the Kanishta Adhikari, right? Kanishta Adhikari is the beginning stage, the very beginning of a devotee's. It's Kanishta Adhikari. Kanishta Majja Adhikari is medium devotee, and then Uttama Adhikari, which is the highest form, pure devotee. Those who are simply attracted to temple worship but do not know the philosophy of bhakti are in the neophyte stage. That sort of bhakti is not the perfectional stage. The perfectional stage of bhakti or devotional service is completely free from material contamination. The most dangerous aspect of contamination is lust or sex life. Bhaktim param, devotional service, is so potent that the more one advances in this line, the more he loses his attraction for material life. So actually losing your desire for enjoyment, your own self-enjoyment in material life. A lot of times people think, oh, that's terrible. I don't want to lose my sex desire in this material life. It's like, that's not a bad thing. It's like you start to go back to all the desire of serving and loving and serving Krishna, which is it's our natural desire. All those other things, when we want, oh, I want to go get that car for my enjoyment. I want to get that girl for my enjoyment. I want to go for this job for my enjoyment. Is lust. It's the perverted reflection of an actual natural tendency to love and serve Krishna. So it's not like we're trying to obtain something by doing something completely new. It's returning, uncovering, and revealing the true loving nature, the true Sanatan Dharma that we, as living entities, engage in eternally. Let's see here. Okay. Bhaktim param, devotional service, is so potent, the more one advances in this line, the more he loses his attraction for material life. One who is actually deriving benefit from hearing Rasa Lila dance surely achieves the transcendental position. He surely loses all traces of lust in his heart, and therefore they can be that devotee who's engaging in this life. It's not like you don't engage in life when you're going off and you're living like a hermit. I suppose some devotees in the past used to do that, but you, like Arjuna, you engage in the service of Krishna using the material energy without the attraction of the outcome or the attraction of the desire of enjoying this kind of thing. You enjoy it or you don't enjoy it or whatever. You're not like attached to it. That's the point. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur points out that according to the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma day and Brahma night are periods of solar years expanding to 4,300,000 multiplied by 1,000. Long time. According to Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, the Rasa dance was performed during the long period of Brahma's night, but the gopis could not understand that. In order to fulfill their desire, Krishna extended the night to cover such a great period of time. One may ask, how was that this was possible? And Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur reminds us that Krishna, although bound by a small rope, could show his mother the whole universe within his mouth. How was this possible? The answer is that he can do anything for the pleasure of his devotees. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course he can. Similarly, because the gopis wanted to enjoy Krishna, they were given the opportunity to associate with him for a long period. This was done according to his promise. When Krishna stole the garments of the gopis, they were taking bath at Chirgat on Jamuna. Krishna promised to fulfill their desire in some future night. In one night, therefore, they enjoyed the company of Krishna as their beloved husband. But that night was not an ordinary night. That night, it was a night of Brahma and lasted millions and millions of years. Everything is possible for Krishna, for he is the supreme controller. That is the essence of it. Krishna is the supreme controller. You know, people, people are always trying to, scientists and atheists are always like, well, how can that be possible? I can't do that. I don't know anybody who can do that. But we're all limited. We're all limited. We're all minute living entities. It's like trying to say, what is the absolute truth by saying, let me gather the whole ocean in this cup. You know, your limitation is the cup. And you try to understand the absolute truth by your mind. It's not possible. It's not possible. Krishna is the supreme controller. The devotee of Krishna accepts that, understands that in their heart, because they have loving attraction to Krishna. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 32nd chapter of Krishna, description of the Rasa dance. Beautiful, such a beautiful story. So this Rasa dance, the introduction to the Rasa dance, it's like 4 chapters or something. It's so wonderful. As always, all the chapters are wonderful, but you can read through them and meditate on them and consistently receive information about them. So thank you very much. We're going to read more next time, and I'm going to chant Krishna's names. Please join along. Nita Okay. Thank you very much for joining in today. And we'll see you next time.